I can't think for you. You'll have to decide. Did Judas Iscariot have God on his side? Welcome to another one of our vlogs or videos. Today, if you recognize that was a photograph of Bob Dylan that many of us are old enough to remember and appreciate and probably have heard his music. And the lyric I just quoted, I can't think for you, you'll have to decide. Did Judas Iscariot have God on his side? That came from With God on Our Side, the 1964 song by Bob Dylan when he was only about 23 years old. He wrote that. This week, October 12th, is the 50th anniversary of the first Broadway show of Jesus Christ Superstar, the rock opera written by Timothy Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber, which was very successful and is still very much acclaimed and still very much run everything. So what is this? These words by Bob Dylan, whose real name is Robert Zimmerman. He was of Jewish descent, grew up in Minnesota. But at a very early age, he wrote this song. What does that have to do with Jesus Christ Superstar? We all love that movie. That play. Also, most of us have seen the movie. It's a great Christian story and great Christian music. No one of us would doubt about that. So what do they have to do with each other? Well, first of all, let's start by talking about Judas Iscariot. Now, if this were a Sunday school class, if we still had Sunday school, I'd talk a lot about Judas Iscariot and point out a couple of things from the contradictions in the Bible. First of all, how many Judases were there? Well, you think it'd be pretty apparent who the 12 disciples were in the Bible, but if you read Mark, it lists one Judas Iscariot, among the 12 disciples or closest followers of Jesus. If you read Luke, it lists two Judases, Judas Iscariot and Judas, the son of James, are listed there. Also, probably the biggest question about Judas is why did he betray Jesus? Why did he do what he did? Well, Mark, the first gospel written, gives no motive. That is, it says that he did that, but about 20 years later, Matthew and Luke came out, and Matthew says he did it for 30 pieces of silver. Matthew continues is that he felt remorse about that. He tried to return the money and eventually hangs himself. Well, Luke, written around the same time, says that he did it because Satan inspired him to do it. But also, writer of Luke says in Acts that Judas went out and really his guts burst open on a field outside of Jerusalem, that he didn't hang himself. So there's a little contradiction there. And John, written about 20 years later, the last of the Gospels chronologically, basically says he did it because he was of Satan, but it was very anti-Semitic. It lists Jesus as being greedy. And there's a lot of anti-Semitism in John, unfortunately, and we'll talk about that some other time. But today we're going to talk about Jesus Christ Superstar thing. It was basically created by, like I said, Timothy Rice and Andrew Lloyd Webber when they were very young. They were only Rice was about 23, 24, and Webber was about 20, 21. They were both raised Anglican over in England, which is interesting. But Rice wanted to write a story from a very young age. He heard these lyrics written by Dylan. It says, did Judas Iscariot have God on his side? And that intrigued him, so he decided at an early age he wanted to write a play, a musical about Judas, or write the story from Judas's perspective, not from Jesus' perspective, but the Christian story from Judas's. And he made the statement, says clearly, Judas Iscariot was not unintelligent. How much of the whole story was, in the end, an accident of what was necessary given the politics of the day. Now, the politics he's talking about is the Roman occupation of Galilee and Judea and Jerusalem, and that the Jews were very oppressed. And if they revolted or caused some trouble for the Romans, it would basically be put down and be very bad for the Jews. The Jews were allowed to worship pretty much as they wanted, but they had to behave to do that. And that was the political climate of the time, and that's really written into the musical. So he wanted to write a musical about this. Now, Rice and Webber did get together to write a play about Joseph, the amazing Technicolor Junko, something like that, put out in 1968. But they still wanted to write this thing about Jesus and about Jesus and Judas. And they were told by many producers. One producer said this is the worst idea in theater history, that nobody would want to do this. You won't be able to get any money. People will protest it. So they decided to come up with this idea. They wrote the music first. They put it into an album, which is very different than putting it into a play or writing for a play. They created a concept album. and they released the music first in the summer before the play came out. And they actually had 2 hits off that. Now, it was banned by the BBC, but in America, some people took a chance on it. It became very popular. 2 songs, Jesus Christ Superstar, became a hit. Also, I Don't Know How to Love Him. So it became very well known, and nobody had seen the play. So, and also they released a concert tour of the cast singing the songs before they'd ever appeared on stage as a play. So because of the album and the tour and the 2 songs and the many protests, people protesting against the development of this, it became very famous, and the money was created for that. Now, one little strange part of the story is that there was a seminary student at a small Lutheran school in Pennsylvania called Gettysburg College who somehow got the copy of the music and the book of the play, and his name was Larry Reclaw. And this seminary student basically put it on. Now, this was illegal because there was a company in England that owned the rights to Jesus Christ Superstar. But using college students and some of the professors' robes and some other props, he put it on. But the way he did it is they didn't charge any admission. They didn't advertise. They called it a dress rehearsal. And they put it on March 25th, 1971 in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania. And it was the first time it had ever been done. They didn't have anything to model it on, so they did it what they thought it should look like. And it was very successful. 1,200 people attended, and they got an ovation of like 15 minutes after it was over. People were sitting in windowsills and outside the windows trying to listen to this, and they were captivated by it. Now, on October 12th, 1971, it opened on Broadway amidst a lot of protest. And a lot of people were against it from the beginning and never even seen it. Billy Graham said it was, borders on blasphemy. People protested because of the human nature of Jesus, not the divinity of Jesus. There was an implication of the physical relationship between between Jesus and Mary Magdalene. It ends with the crucifixion and not the resurrection. And many Jewish groups protested it because of the anti-Semitic way it portrayed the high priest and their conspiracy to kill Jesus, which I think they have a point there. But it ran for over 700 shows, and every one was protested. It's been redone all over the country, including here in Dalton. Many years ago, the first play I saw at the Little Theater in Dalton in 1980 was Jesus Christ. No, I'm sorry, that was Godspell, but it's probably been done in Dalton, I'm sure. Anyway, is the most commercially successful adaptation of the Bible in theater history, and that's saying quite a bit. It's a Christian rock opera. The Vatican praised it and played it on their radio station. In fact, in 1973, a very successful movie was made of it that probably all of us have seen. Pope Paul VI was given a special viewing of the movie and made the statement, "Not only do I appreciate your beautiful rock opera, I believe it will bring more people around the world to Christianity than anything has before." Well, that didn't quite turn out to be true, but even Billy Graham changed his mind and said, well, if it causes young people to read the Bibles, it could be beneficial. So it's turned out that it has been very successful these 50 years, but 2 people who did not like at least the original productions of it, one of them, ironically, was Larry Reclaw, who thought it was too commercial. He thought it was too much of the theatrical, gimmicks to put on there. But Andrew Lloyd Webber didn't like it. He called it brash and vulgar. And he said, never, in my opinion, was so wrong a production mounted of one of my works. He did not like the way the directors had done it, particularly at the end when they portrayed Jesus wearing a glorious heavenly arraignment. And Judas, the same way, at the end, he called it, that was glitz, and was not what he and Webber intended in the story. So we love the music, and we like that. And Godspell are the best examples of Christian rock music even yet. But the music sort of misses the point of what their story really was. So the intention, was to get it from Judas's perspective and his reaction to, Jesus, not a story about Jesus. So it's more about asking questions about Jesus than a study from a Christian perspective. It is intentionally not reverent. So let's kind of look at it. And despite the accusations, Jesus Christ Superstar, the play, does not deny the divinity of Jesus. It sort of leaves that unanswered. But it tries to consider the reaction of the humans to Jesus, not just Judas, but also with Mary and the disciples and Pilate and Herod, and also the crowd. The crowd plays a big part of this, and their reaction to Jesus is a big change in the movie. or the play, I'm sorry. It says, so those who encounter Jesus in that time and place, again in 29 AD in around Jerusalem, it says in history, and trying to figure out who Jesus was. So let's consider the songs. I wish we had a chance to go over all of them. I'm just going to hit the highlights here. It starts out with a song called Heaven on Their Minds. Not on my mind, but their minds, sung by Judas. And what he's doing, he's observing all the followers of Jesus who was, who were getting so excited and praising Jesus and wanting to follow Jesus. Now, Judas is not evil in the play. In fact, he's very pragmatic, and he's frustrated that, that this idealistic Jesus just doesn't see what's going on. He's afraid that the Romans, as they eventually would do, would bear down on the Jewish people and cause harm to the Jewish people. That this had to be brought in. We need to cut down on the noise. So he and the priests are sort of agreeing on that. Then the next song I want to go over is I Don't Know How to Love Him, sung by Mary of Magdalene. It says that she questions who and what is this Jesus? And this was in a society which women were very much on the bottom. They had no status or standards whatsoever. And Jesus attracted a lot of attention from women. He was very attractive to them, not in a physical sense, but because he included women. He taught women, which is unheard of at the time, and he spoke directly to women. And he was followed by many women, including a lot of wealthy supporters who basically supported his ministry. And that's just one of the facts of the Bible. Now, the song The Last Supper, which is sung by the disciples, has my favorite line in the whole play, which says, and when we retire, we will write the Gospels, and they will all talk about us when we're gone. I think that line is so human and so illustrates the misunderstanding the disciples had of what was going on. And then the shortest song in the play is the Crucifixion. And this is the last time in the play that Jesus speaks. Now, by this time in the play, both Judas and Jesus are feeling very hurt and betrayed and misunderstood. And Jesus' final words are, my God, why have you forgotten me? Or some of the early Greek translations says, why have you forsaken me? Or why have you mocked me? But Jesus says in the play, why have you forgotten me? And then finally says, into your hands I commend my spirit. And finally, the most important song at the end was sung by Judas. It's called Superstar. Now, when we heard the song when it came out in the summer of 1971, nobody realized it was Judas singing the song. And I think that's kind of ironic and probably would not have been as popular had we realized that. But it's not a song praising and adoration for Jesus. In fact, it's a little bit of an insult. Go back to the first song of Heaven on Their Minds. The crowd, and let's call them groupies, they're more infatuated with Jesus than Jesus' message. They called him a superstar, and Jesus really was a superstar. But a superstar is not necessarily a compliment, especially in those days, because a superstar is more important than the role, more important than the team, more important than the movement. And Jesus was becoming more important with all those. They were more important, interested in Jesus than what Jesus had to say. He said, and Judas prays up, said, if you come today, and that's one of the words, which brings us to reality. Judas is not singing in 29 AD anymore. He's singing from today's perspective, asking the audience in the play, he's asking the audience to ask the same questions that he's asking Jesus at the end of the story. And those questions are, he says, I only want to know, says, do you think you're what, not who, but what they say you are? In other words, do you think you're God? And he says, what are the other beliefs that are valid? Buddhism, Islam, says, did you mean to die that way? Did you know that you would have the impact that you did? And finally, he asked many times, who are you? Judas challenges not just Jesus, but the audience to ask the same questions of Jesus. So Jesus Christ Superstar is an entertaining musical, as a play and a movie. In this 50th anniversary, we want to learn from what the original intent was from Rice and Weber about what the story really was about. It says they sought to present this story from Judas's perspective and the human perspective of the people. Judas, Mary, the disciples, Pilate, Herod, and the crowd, encountering Jesus, experiencing Jesus in that time and place. A very difficult time and place when they had a lot of fear, and confusion about really what was going on and what Jesus was going to do. And they're trying to figure out what Jesus is. Are you what they say you are? Are you God? Now, if Jesus came today, which is Judas asked the question, if you came today, well, this is, as mentioned in the song, well, how would we encounter Jesus? Would we be like the religious and political leaders and fear Jesus and put Jesus to death because of our fear of him? Will we be like the crowd and want Jesus to please us, to entertain us, to heal us, and to give us what we want? And then, ignore his message, but then treat Jesus like a superstar, and then turn on Jesus when he disappoints us? Was that what we would do today? So in this 50th anniversary, we need to ask the question today, do we really know what Jesus is? Now, as I said, Jesus Christ Superstar is very entertaining, and I can't let you get away without at least giving you some part of this. If I can operate the technology here, and I'm not sure I'm going to do this with YouTube, that, so we could kind of bear with me just a second. We'll see if we can demonstrate this. So hold on just a second. Hopefully this will be worth it, so bear with me, and we'll see what we can shoot here. So hold on, it's the technology catch up with us. So let's see what we can do here.